Hello guys, so we will continue our data ingestion in this video. So we have specified our output configuration. So what we have to do next is to pass this output configuration into our CSV example gen, and then so we pass the output configuration and then our data location into CSV example gen, and then CSV example gen will work its magic and then produce some output files for us. So we'll go ahead and then say example gen is equal to CSV example gen input base. So the input base is where your data files are. So our data files are here. That's this one. So that's our data location. And then we'll say output config should be equal to output. Right. And then we run this. So as you can see, nothing happened. So what's going on? So to be able to run TFX component interactively, so in your Jupyter notebooks, you need something we call a context manager. So the context will run your components interactively for you. So before you can run this example gen component, you need to use a context manager. And after running this, I would explain why it's called example gen and not maybe CSV gen or whatever. The output files that it will generate, it gets the name from the output files it generates. So let's go ahead and then call this interactive context class or function that we'll use to run our example gen. So we'll say from TFX dot orchestration, I think, dot experimental. It's a quite long dot experimental dot interactive context import interactive context. I wish Google would or the TFX team would do something about these long file imports, but yeah. So we are going to run this again, and then after that we will just say so then we need to instantiate this interactive context. So we will say context is equal to interactive context. Okay, so I want you to take a look at our documentation. We will be looking at the documentation a lot, especially in the documentation of our installed libraries, or if we have to go to the site to check something, because I believe being a good machine learning engineer means that you know how to read documentation very well. Most of the things you don't have to know them off head. So reading documentation also really helps. Okay, so as you can see, it says pipeline name, pipeline route. So when we run our pipeline components with TFX generates some metadata. So it generates some files, some output files, and stuff like that. And it needs a location where you can store all this metadata that it generates. So we are just going to specify a location for it. First, I'm going to create a new folder here, and then I'm going to call it pipeline. So I'm just going to change the name of this folder and then call them pipeline. That's it. And so all our pipeline metadata will be stored in here. And as you go, you would see the different pipeline metadata that is being stored in this folder. So we'll go ahead and then specify the location of this. We'll say pipeline route. Pipeline route is equal to pipeline. Okay. So this is all we need to specify our context. I'll go ahead and then move it in this section. Okay, so it says that it has initialized some um, SQL Lite ML data database at this in this folder. So then we can go ahead and then run our example gen with our context. So we say context dot run. So context dot run example gen. Now it will take some, I hope there is no error, but it will take some time to run. So I'll start running it and then I'll pause the video. So when it's done running, I'll come back and then we can continue. So our pipeline has finished running now, and so you have some execution results, hopefully, after it has finished running. And then you have your execution ID, because this is our first run of our example gen component. So our execution ID is 1. We have the component name here. If I expand, you can see some outputs and then some properties over here. So the input base, the directory that we specified, and then the output configurations that we specified are also here. And then we can see component outputs. So this is very important, our component output, because we read in CSV file, so we need something. So what is that something that we are getting after ingesting our data? So we can actually go, as I said, we specified a pipeline folder. So all our outputs are going to be stored in that folder. So we can go ahead and then look at what has happened in that folder. So I can go ahead and then just open my pipeline folder. So this is my um, local working directory. So I have my pipeline folder here. And in my pipeline folder, you can see the components we just ran, the CSV example gen. The context manager has created that directory for you. And then you have your metadata database here. You don't need to worry about this. So let's go ahead and then open this folder. And then we open this folder. We open this. So this is the execution ID. And then you can see we have split train and split eval. Let's go ahead and open. So after opening this, we see data TF record, whatever. It's a GZ archive. So what is this? So the output format for our TFX pipeline. So when we read CSV files, we read all those CSV files. It's going to read all those CSV files and then package them using a different file format. And that file format is the TF record file format, right? So um, we would look at what this TF record file format is in our next video, and then I'll show you how you can read this file format also in our next video.